Welcome to the Great Distraction.
Welcome back, people. This is The Great Distraction, and today the topic of discussion is why mixed martial arts. My name is Ben. With me today are my co-hosts Joe,
Yo,
Glenn,
howdy.
And today a very special guest, Chris.
What's up, y'all?
If this is your first time listening, welcome. We thank you for joining us. The Great Distraction is a podcast that focuses on a vast and random range of topics, and we hope that each episode leaves you with, if nothing else, something to ponder. Right off the bat, Chris is a very good friend of ours. He knows all of us, and we've known him for many years. And a close homie, no doubt.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We wanted to specifically bring him onto this episode because he has an extensive background in mixed martial arts since the age of 5, and he studied several different types. And it's basically just right up his alley. So we figured he can add some very interesting input and insights to it. On top of that, our resident host here, Brother Glenn, he likewise has extensive knowledge and has been in it most of his life.
Yep.
And so we got two people here who I on the other hand know nothing about it. So I was very interested with a lot of this stuff, and I wanted to present it in a fashion basically like I was approaching it, not knowing anything and seeing what these guys brought into it. However, beforehand, I did a little bit of research, so I'll throw out some little tidbits here and there to bring us everyone up to speed with what we're doing here. But yes, this whole mixed martial arts thing, it is everywhere around us, from the ever popular and famous UFC MMA stuff on TV. There are sports bars built around this. No longer is it just our football, baseball, and I don't know, whatever other sports bars are built around different sports. Soccer, probably. I don't really follow this stuff, but to various facilities in every single neighborhood. I mean, they're like your local Starbucks. Everywhere you go, there's some sort of either karate, Taekwondo, or Jiu Jitsu, or various flavors of it everywhere. And there's just, in general, a lot of people interested in studying this. I know several coworkers of mine are very into it, and I have a whole bunch of friends who are into it. And I think it comes to everyone for a lot of different reasons, and people get into it for a lot of different reasons. And you guys helped me out with this list here, but a couple I've had exposure to was just in general self-defense. I mean, it just the hand-to-hand combat or self-defense of that manner is very important to a lot of people. If you're not going to carry a weapon or use a weapon, and you find yourself in a situation where you need some education or training to defend yourself, that's a huge reason for a lot of people. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's also a point of self-confidence and handling situations in a day-to-day fashion. And when you have a little bit of knowledge and have an understanding of possible options for you to take in a given situation, if it presents itself.
Yeah.
Just handling and how you walk changes.
Yeah.
It affects your mentality.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I remember when I started looking into concealed carry permits, that some people were saying that same thing, and then other people would combat that with, wait a minute, dude, if you're getting confidence from carrying a concealed firearm, you probably shouldn't be carrying a concealed firearm. But nevertheless, there is a certain amount of confidence knowing that you can protect yourself and
definitely
will not be a victim, should, or at least as bad a victim as potentially you could if you did not have or could not protect yourself or defend yourself.
Well, I've never thought about that dynamic before. You bring up an interesting one, Ben. The difference between maybe the confidence you may draw from having a weapon on you versus what you know as a martial artist,
which can be like a weapon, right?
Well, I mean they're both like levels of confidence, right? But they're completely different. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, the training and the technique that goes into firearm carry and knowing what you're doing with a firearm is completely different than what you're doing as a mixed martial artist, and the way that you carry yourself, as Glenn was saying, with the confidence, which I completely agree with.
Yeah, to me it almost feels like your firearm training or your firearm as your defense is almost like an offensive defense versus a lot of martial arts that I've talked to people about. It's very defensive. Defend yourself first before you have to go attack and hurt somebody. Get yourself out of the situation intelligently and keep your head together.
The outcomes are also extremely different.
Yeah. Boy, that is true, yes. Self-discipline, just in general, I have heard people coin as a purpose, which I think may go into the confidence boost as well, sort of thing. I mean, when you feel that you are more in control of yourself, I believe that you could then, breed more confidence in oneself at the same time. I also wanted to mention too, just general exercise and health benefits. I mean, there's tremendous amount in that strength building, balance. I mean, if you guys can think of anything else, I don't know. I mean, is there any weightlifting or cardio that is typically done?
You fight for, I mean,
extended periods of time.
Go around 3 minutes and tell me how you feel.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So if you start huffing and puffing like that, yeah, that's your cardio going strong there.
A lot of gyms will, excuse me. A lot of gyms will bring about cardio kickboxing classes where they do timed rounds, so you get used to a sort of all the way up to like a 35, 45 minute, hour long workout. So,
wow.
I mean, it just depends on, how long you train and what you do. But I mean, that's the whole point, is to build up the stamina to be able to survive rounds. I mean,
that's one thing. One of my coworkers just told me that a couple of weeks ago. He's into Jiu Jitsu, and I'm sorry, I don't know the specifics or whatever, but he was saying, when they're rolling, they'll go for like 40 minutes straight. And he's like, you can tell the new people, it doesn't matter the size. It doesn't matter how crazy or scary they look. About 10, 15 minutes into it, a newbie's like out of breath, barely moving, and you can just dominate them after that.
Yeah, and you'll see a 295 pound. Nah, that's actually probably a little bit too far off, but like 265, 255, clean for 5 minutes around 8 rounds, 40 minutes solid, no problems. And then you'll see someone who's 110 pounds and can't go a single round.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really just depends on your training, what you've done in your past, and
he said specifically that kind of situation really boosted his self-confidence, because it really changed how you look at a potential adversary. You walk down the street and you're like, yeah, that guy's huge and looks scary, but what kind of endurance does he have? Could I wear him out before he even had a chance to hurt me? Or anyway, it changes the way you look at people and potential threats, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I imagine that self-confidence has to play in all kinds of other avenues of life that you wouldn't even expect it until you were used to the idea and up there at that level.
It's another point that's kind of fun. Your reflexes improve. I mean, like there are things that happen where you're like walking down the street, and you look, say you just glance behind you, but you keep walking, you catch back, and right at the corner of the eye, you see a branch coming, and you just duck under it, and like it wasn't even there. You didn't even think about dodging. It was just you move, or you're walking, you drop something, and you just catch it out. Pluck it out of the air before it hits.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're just more used to utilizing your reactions as opposed to just what you visually see and not doing. Your body doesn't do anything with it. It just
you gain more of an awareness of your physical form and how to get it out of the way if need be, or what you can do with it.
Definitely, I can definitely see that.
Better idea of your position in your surroundings. Yeah, totally.
How does that play into your ego, man? Ties your physical and your ego together stronger.
You have a better idea of what you are and what you can do.
Yeah.
You also have to come from an extreme place of humbleness. Otherwise, it will not work, because I've been on both sides of the spectrum, and you can't overconfidence anything. It's a continuous learning process, and so if you don't treat it properly, it's very much like a mantra or anything else that you study or that you that's part of your day to day. So it's kind of, it plays into your life, like you said. But
I'm sure it extends in many different ways.
Absolutely.
Let me just a couple of quick stuff I thought was interesting real quick about the history of this stuff in America today. It seems like what we're most familiar with in modern times right now started in Japan, and the first organized MMA events in the U.S. were back in the 80s, 1980 in fact. And at that time, it seemed, from what I was reading, there was some backlash from quite a few states that were trying to ban this type of activity, or at least an organized fashion of it. I mean, obviously they couldn't stop people from doing what they were doing in their own private, facilities or whatever. But anyway, so that was MMA which is again mixed martial arts for those playing at home. In 1993, UFC was founded by what I guess the Gracie family, which was a family looking to bring a Brazilian style of Jiu Jitsu, trying to make it more popular in the U.S., and also the Valet Tudo style fighting in the U.S. And between those two, it just kind of well, 93 wasn't that long ago. I mean, yeah, but between those two, it just kind of seemed to blow up to what we have today, and that's quite a bit more. I mean, it has spread like religion and the various various offshoots from each one, or like different denominations of each. I mean, it's been pretty impressive. I mean, I don't think anybody knows anybody that isn't into it or watches it, or like I mentioned, even the sports bar. Sometimes we'll be wandering around downtown and find ourselves in some bar or whatever. This looks like a happening place, and we're looking around like, what the hell? Oh, this is all fighting. There's TVs everywhere. Everybody's angrily yelling at the screens. Like,
well, it's definitely much more interesting to me than watching a football game.
Okay.
Personally.
I remember thinking about that. Yeah, I'm not into sports of any way, shape, or form, but I do remember thinking that watching sumo and boxing were both actually way more interesting to me than most of our popular sports here in America. But
what specifically about sumo did you find interesting? Just out of curiosity.
Just the raw power and watching these, because it seemed to me
size,
two big guys crashed into each other. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but you're right. That was exactly one of the things. Not to get us too far derailed from where I want to head, but that was one of the things. Is watching these two who were slow moving and lots of strength seemed to me like the battle between the two had to be more psychological and more strategically placed as they're progressing through the match, because they have less speed, agility, and quickness to work with. It's like it seemed to me, again, I don't study this stuff, I don't know anything about it, but it seemed to me like it would take more strategy and planned thought in your movements to achieve victory than it would with 50 different punches placed over the course of 12 minutes or whatever, I don't know, something like that.
From just experience and just watching documentaries and just visiting to Japan and seeing the culture.
So you got way more than what I do, dude.
I'll be honest, it's just as big of a spread of perspective on the sport itself of sumo as there is on any other perspective of any other sport like MMA or Muay Thai or Jiu Jitsu or anything like that, because you can have a fighter who's on the lower spectrum of classes, like as far as weight goes. Their tactics are going to be completely different than someone who's on the top end and who's just there for power.
Got it. So different strategic variances.
It's still about agility, because but their diet, their
lifestyle,
it is fascinating.
Yeah,
it is
but I think any professional fighter period has a definite lifestyle.
But
it's
unique. Sumos are very unique.
Yeah, because they're trying to go for that clean health, muscle gain and weight gain.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's just interesting that you mentioned sumo, because sumo it's extremely popular, not only just in Japan, but past the 80s and 90s, it blew up worldwide. And so, we have I watched a documentary on several Americans who had begun to adopt the Japanese way of sumo, and so they moved there. They found a school. They took on all the practices and everything like that. So it was
very cool.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome. I'd watch that documentary.
I'll find the name of it, but
and I have very little exposure to it, but I don't know how to find more of it. Like, do they actually broadcast
YouTube
matches? Maybe. Well, I guess I could do YouTube.
They do.
They do. Okay.
They have championships, and
you just have to have a $400 cable bill and satellite or something, then you can watch.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. No.
I'll have to look for that more. I just never really thought to look into it more, but my limited exposure was pretty cool. Yeah. I thought it was pretty cool. Okay, let's. I did want to break off here and talk specifically to you and Glenn and Chris here about a few things with respect to this and how it fits into your life. Glenn, let's start with you and tell us first off, what do you practice? I mean, what is your main focus, or what do you mostly train in? Background and what? Yeah, just specifically what?
A style of kempo. Kosho shoreru.
Okay.
It's considered a rather hard style.
Okay.
It comes from Japan. It came over, hit Hawaii first, and then came over to the States in the early 50s.
All right. What makes it different than? It has to have some sort of specific characteristics or unique characteristics about it, right? What are those that makes it different than other styles of MMA?
Let's see. There's
Like, is there a lot of
stance, position, footwork, how you stand, how your body mechanics shift depending upon the different styles. The methodology behind the strikes are a little different. How you move, how you're reacting to your opponent. In some styles, you're utilizing your opponent's momentum or their energy for everything. And there aren't any hard strikes. You're just letting them beat themselves up, essentially. A harder style, you have a more solid base. You're not moving as much, but you've got a harder impacts. You have more powerful strikes.
Got it. So it sounds like concentrating more on your foundational stability, like you said, your footwork, and also your offensive attacks.
Sure.
Okay. Strong focus on those two. Okay.
Width of your stances. Some styles have a much sharper, tighter line. Others have a broader, wider base.
Interesting.
A lot of different variations.
I think that makes sense. What brought you to this? Well, not only just this style, but also what brought you to training in general, like in your life?
I was born into it.
Okay. So like all your family or
my dad, his brothers, they all are practitioners. So I grew up with it, around it. I started going to dojo when I was 6.
Okay. So brought up from childhood.
Yeah,
Got it. And how often do you practice or train? What should I be? First of all, what should I be saying? Should I be saying practice or train, or does it matter? I mean, is it?
Really, it's the same thing.
Okay. Okay. I just didn't know.
Depends on who you talk to.
Yeah. Right.
It depends on how opinionated they are.
Yeah. Okay.
To be honest
okay.
with you.
But I mean, training.
Synonymous terms.
Okay. Okay.
I suppose training, the idea of training is more dedicated, is more focused.
Sound better to me. I just didn't know what to say.
It does portray a little bit of a different mentality behind it.
Yeah. So I was a little confused. So how often are you going?
Me, today, not as much as I used to, which is very unfortunate. But I've kind of bounced on and off my entire life.
Yeah.
But I mean, a couple days ago, I just started working through my forms again, and it's,
So at your peaks, like, what are you, 4 or 5 days a week? Or are you only 2 or 3? Like, how often do you commit? How big of a part do you make this of your life?
Let's see. When I'm training, I do it 3-4 times a week.
Okay, got it. Got it. Okay, and last question I wanted to ask you was, how do you feel, as best as you can sum it up, that this has benefited your life? Now, I know before you answer that, I know we discussed the self-confidence thing or whatever, but is there something much more specific for you that what keeps you going other than it's been there since you were a child? I mean,
there's a spiritual element behind it.
Expand on that.
There is, when you're working a form or some styles, Tai Chi, for example, you focus on moving your body's energy through your body and it grounding you. You become really aware of yourself, connected to the earth, the sky, the energies around you, and there is a centering in your body. Kind of hard to put into words.
I've seen people practice Tai Chi, and it did look very meditative. I mean, very different reason, not for a defensive or offensive at all. But it's very.
It's to work on yourself. It's
okay.
It's a focusing on your being.
Okay.
And personally, when I experienced that and felt the flow of the energy in my body, and it was a spiritual thing, in my life.
Got it. It's a great answer.
Left,
it works.
Resonated.
Yeah.
It also kind of connects you with a very primal aspect of being a human being, I feel. I think yoga is very similar in that way.
I think yoga and Tai Chi have some great foundational commonalities there.
I was going to add, as humans, I feel like we cut ourselves off, and that's the whole point. You have to look at the opposite aspect of why you need to feel this connection, right? Because you're previously cut off. You cut yourself off for all sorts of logical reasons, outside barriers against whatever, whatever life has to throw at you. But you kind of as Glenn was saying, you have to kind of reconnect and feel everything around you. It helps. It's just part of therapy. It's part of human therapy. I think it's natural, to be honest with you.
Kind of like most of us, I think, are starving for that mental connection with our own selves because we focus on nothing but the great distractions.
Right.
Yeah.
In a way, it is separating yourself from some of those great distractions.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Goes back to very much that meditative mindset.
That's definitely an aspect I really appreciate about practicing yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I'd like to mention too, that's probably similar with Tai Chi and any one of these really, it's an act of humbling yourself before a process. And at first, a good example of that, of what I mean, I guess, is at first you get in this environment where you really don't know the moves necessary. So you stumble through it to try and make the shape that you can, or, play the best defense that you can until you get a handle on that move, and then you start to master it. And being in that environment at first where you're not really sure and you're learning a lot, it's very healthy for human beings. And I think it kind of scratches that itch a little bit.
I can totally see that, kind of like learning a new hobby or taking on a new major project or something totally different, or taking on a new job. It really resets you, reminds you that you don't know everything, and you're nobody again. You're like a child, Donnie, and wandering about. And yeah, I can totally see that humbling being a good and healthy experience for people to have.
And then it plays into that spirituality that Glenn was talking about. I feel, for sure.
Very nice. I like this, guys. Okay. Okay, we're good with Glenn. Okay, Chris, same questions. Let's see. Let's start with
yes, sir.
What type of mixed martial arts are you into?
Well, let's start at the beginning. Taekwondo, traditional Taekwondo, what I would consider adopted American Taekwondo. I don't mean to be disrespectful to any American associations, but it's a very adopted way of assimilating to something that was created internationally. And so Americans did a very good job at it. So I grew up in the era that it was. I grew up in the Eric Roberts best of the best era, where we were watching, the United States team go against the South Korean team, because South Koreans created Taekwondo. It goes way further back. We can go all the way back, 5,000 BC with Shaolin monks. We can go, that far back. It's been, forms of, hands and feet of using them in a defensive way. It's been used for a very long time.
Right?
Well, Shaolin monk wise, it is anyways. Yeah, they're the ones who originated 5,000 years ago. It's been around for a very, very long time, but it started out as protection. That's what it was meant for. So I think if you keep that in mind always, I don't know how comfortable you gentlemen are with ancestral connections, but making those ancestral connections in anything that you do, I think if you have the mindset there, it helps just to know where it comes from originally.
Yeah,
this is an ideal. So, but it has evolved quite a bit.
Yeah.
But, Taekwondo first. I have my first degree black belt, earned it through Robinson's Taekwondo in Sacramento. And then I just moved on from there and went to Sac State, studied under Eric Juvedo at the Sac State Mixed Martial Arts Club for Muay Thai.
Cool.
So traditional Muay Thai, several years of that, no belt specifically, but quite a bit of experience and post experience. And then about a year of Jiu Jitsu training. So just getting into that. So
does Muay Thai not have belts, or you just weren't working?
Muay Thai does have belts.
Okay.
It depends on.
You just weren't working as that as a goal. So.
I mentioned Lok Mai earlier. Lok Mai is another offshoot of traditional Muay Thai. As far as belt systems, it just depends on where you are on the planet and what sort of style they're adopting, because there's a lot of different styles of Muay Thai. But the main base for Muay Thai is the 8 points, which is hands, 1, 2, elbows, 3, 4, knees, 5, 6, feet, 7, 8, traditional. So 8 points. And everything that you do flows through those 8 points. Every motion, every transition, everything. There's no ground involved, 0 ground. So it's all standing. So
Interesting.
you don't take it to the ground. I mean, in a traditional Muay Thai match. So,
So for Muay Thai, that sounds like it's distinctive or unique approach or angle to mixed martial arts. What about, and it almost sounds like that's what probably attracted you to it, because you seemed to.
well, my uncle, interesting story. I mean, I'm gonna leave him nameless. We won't say what side he's on, but he had a Muay Thai extent in Thailand when he was younger. There's just a draw to the sport. There's a lot of fanfare around it. There's a lot of sort of hype to it, on every local aspect, all the way through, big names, K1 and other very traditional Thai boxing or kickboxing syndicates. So all the way down to the local, but it's amazing. It's amazing to watch. It's amazing to see from all over the world, because it varies a lot, just like every other martial art. So, but yeah, those are my three main focuses. I'll be getting my second degree hopefully soon. The grandmaster that I'm under now, his name's Grandmaster Amen, Gary Amen. He's from LA. He's in LA. He's a stunt coordinator as well. So he'll be giving me my second degree hopefully. So.
What was it specifically about Jiu Jitsu that took you that direction? What I'm trying to do is establish, like, when you delve deep into...
You want to know the truth? I mean, I'll tell you the truth. Okay.
Nothing but the truth. Was it a girl?
No, we were about 20, 21, just hanging out, just friends and stuff. And, I was very confident in my Taekwondo skills. And I had a guy who was a wrestler. He just took me down, and he rear naked choked me. And the feeling, okay, so I'll relate this to many mixed martial artists that go in the cage in the UFC. They all taste defeat at some point, and it's nasty and it's bitter and it sucks. But once you do, you go one of two ways. You're like, that sucked, I'm just going to be a pacifist, or you're like, oh, that was fascinating, I need to see how I can win next time because I survived this one. So that kind of sparked it for me. And so that spark led to Muay Thai. That spark led to Jiu Jitsu.
Okay.
So that I now know, again, that mixed martial arts aspect because Taekwondo can only take you so far.
Yeah.
And I love it, and Taekwondo is my base. If you watch me on a bag, I'll be in Taekwondo. I'll vary it up, but Taekwondo is my go-to stance. So.
Understood. Mm-hmm. And in the very beginning, I think you had just mentioned that you started this as childhood. Who put you in it? How did that work out? Your mom? My mom,
yeah. She had a husband at the time who was training.
Okay.
And so he had a son who was a year older than me. 3 years older than me. 3 years younger than me. My apologies. So we all
was around you.
We were all in the same area, but they were very. It was, again, I've said at the beginning, it's American martial arts. Like there was a macho aspect to it.
Yeah.
So they got, but they had a really good run with it. We went through a lot of state championships. I mean, we were very good. Our school was, we had a lot of. I mean, in our division for our age. I think it was 6th grade through 8th grade. It was somewhere in that area. We were Robinson's was like, it was just us. We were all up, like it was 1, 2, 3 Robinsons. It was all us. So locally, cool. Anyway. So yeah,
cool. Currently, how often do you train?
Every day.
Every day. And in the past, I mean, you've been doing this
every
for
day.
A long time?
But I mean, every day in the sense of like shadow boxing and like, you get it. If you're a true martial artist, you get it in where you can. Like, it doesn't matter where you are, you're training. So it goes back to that philosophy. It goes back to, keeping, but in the gym, actually training probably 3 or 4 days a week, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then you do stuff at home too. You've talked to me about that before.
And train with my son as well. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. So expand on that a little bit. The cycle is continuing, huh? And,
I hope
the young Simba there.
I hope he goes in for whatever he wants to do. It's more about where he's comfortable at. But yeah, he's definitely been trained for his entire life.
So expand on that. Let's expand on that.
Still,
a
I
little.
think installing that sense of being able to defend yourself, it's something that every parent should do. You know what I mean? Because especially with the way kids are in school nowadays, like your kid, if I had a kid, my kid would know how to defend himself. He would never get picked on and be bullied and let that go to his head in a bad way. Never.
So here's the deal. You got to give them the tools.
Right.
And if they choose to get punched in the nose, then you chose to. You know how to counter it. If you chose to, that's your choice. And that's another part of the aspect of parenting is you have to give them the tools and then stand back and let them choose whether to use it or not. Yeah. There were a couple times through me growing up when I was in school with Taekwondo where people tested me. They knew because my school did demonstrations at our school, board breaking, trying to get people into visit the dojo and stuff. So they knew I was a martial artist, and so they would test me. And so it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't the best, but it also was. It's part of the territory of being out there and having the skills. People test you, and so. Yeah,
I can definitely see that. Yeah, I remember the kids, the same similar situation. He's like, "Oh, yeah, I didn't know you were in it." And then when they come and do the demonstration, that's their big thing is they want one of your friends involved, right? So that's a closer connection to makes it more personal to each of the students that are doing it. Yeah. So going back to first of all, how old is your son?
He's 4.
Okay, and how do you start off? I'm kind of curious about this. How do you start off someone so young? What do you start them off with? I mean, obviously not breaking boards.
No, so just leg movements. I mean, 6 months through like 2-3 years is just like moving their arms and just moving their legs to get them used to motion, period. So it becomes memory.
What about so do they stretch? Do they do stretches? Or?
Well, yeah. Okay. I mean, beyond baby stretches, but more for martial arts training is like transitions, where your leg's going to go at what point. Because there's, another aspect of mixed martial arts is this transition, period where you're going from stand up to the ground. So, I mean, it's extremely important to know where you're going to put your foot. Are you in danger from putting your foot in a certain place? Are you now where, it's a chess game. So, and so training, obviously you don't want to train wrong or, incorrectly to your future generation. So I do my best, but he knows basic stuff. And, I think the hardest part probably is as him growing up is whether or not I'm going to be able to rope that in and make sure that he understands what responsibility he has with what he knows.
Yeah.
So that's the most important part. But, so far so good. So no issues. So.
Very cool. And I know there's a lot of people out there with kids who are interested in getting their children into that stuff. And I've asked a number of people I know with children, and what is your motivation? But then I asked the same thing about soccer or any other sports that they get their children into. And
as Joe said, protection, is a huge part of it. It's making sure that they are protected, but making sure that it's done in the best way that you can. I mean, you give them the tools and you step back, but just hoping that they have protection.
Yeah. Plus, there's a lot of kids that just spend way too much time sitting on the goddamn couch.
Yeah.
Yep. And then to teach a kid to install that young into them, they'll move. They'll be doing movement for the rest of their life in one way or another, probably. And then again, you'd of course want to give your kid as much confidence as possible, and that's a great way to build it.
I can also see the real strong benefit with the self-discipline aspect of it, because not only is it, control yourself, like you were saying, will he be able to tie it up, or will he go crazy, beating everybody up, right?
And
will
control
he
yourself around others.
Yeah, and also the self-discipline to learn something, kind of like along the same lines as learning a musical instrument. I mean, that teaches a kid perseverance and self-discipline, teaches a person, doesn't matter whatever age. I mean, you keep practicing until you get it right, and you self-discipline yourself into success, or at least procedural success as you work yourself better and better and better.
Yep.
Practice makes perfect, so to speak, if that's even attainable.
Yeah. I don't know. Bruce Lee said, learn it all and then forget it all, right? That's what Bruce Lee said.
Nice.
It's cool. It's one of my favorites from Bruce Lee.
That's awesome. So, and the last question we had asked Glenn there was, how do you feel? I think you may have already answered it, but if there's something else you want to add to it, how do you feel that this has, being a part of this or having this in your life, has benefited you?
I think Glenn touched on most of the aspects. You know, I don't even know if I would. I don't know about spirituality. Like I'm somewhere in between agnostic and atheist. So you know, spirituality is up in the air for me. But as far as mantras and how you live your life, just whatever code you stick to. I don't care in what form. You can call it moral. You can call it whatever you want. Martial arts has held a huge weight. Just as far as just a presence, knowing that you need the conditioning, you need to dedicate time for yourself to make sure that you it's more of self-dedication. It's teaching yourself to love yourself and take care of yourself, and also to protect yourself. It's heavily based in life value.
It's self-care.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's very therapeutic. I mean, when I go to the gym, they luckily just installed a 4-rack of Muay Thai bags. Big, huge, expensive. And I'll tell you, like, when you spend 35 minutes on a Muay Thai bag just hitting the shit out of it. Sorry, excuse me for the language.
No.
But,
You're right.
Just when you afterwards you have nothing. You're so empty. Whereas and if you know how to vector the energy properly, you can do it into the bag, and it's depending upon how you take your style. You thank the bag like for accepting the energy, this bad energy that you've just put. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. It can be socially, it can be family, it can be. But it's again goes back to the lifestyle of how
relief.
How you use it. They're very therapeutic. I use it for therapy.
Okay, I like it. Both of you guys. Do you guys watch fighting on TV or pay per view or however it's watched anymore? Do you enjoy watching it, and do you watch it regularly? Whichever one you want.
I don't make a point to go out and watch it.
Okay,
but if it's on, I definitely enjoy it.
Okay.
I make a point to stay pretty up to date on the UFC specifically. They do have the best fighters. I'm a little disappointed recently with some of the social experiments they've been doing. They've brought in sort of a WWE aspect, in my opinion.
Oh wow!
Sort of a fake
drama.
And you don't need that, especially when you've created this sort of environment for these athletes to be in that is extremely high caliber. There's no place for these sort of antics, right? That are presented sort of in the WWE that are more theatrics. There is no theatrics in athletics. Athletics is science. So as we
But there's theatrics involved in selling tickets.
That's right.
And selling pay-per-views.
That's sad because I wonder if sales have gone down and that's why they're introducing marketing approaches like that, or if they're hoping to gain.
They just always want more.
They just want more.
Got to feed the monkey, man.
Well, I'm super interested. Like, I guess Meryl Streep just made this a couple, I don't know, either last year or so the year before, just against mixed martial artists in general, like about just she had mentioned them specifically, like UFC fighters or mixed martial artists or fighters. And just like with a sort of a hateful intonation. And I was just like, why? Like, why would you, without even understanding what this culture is about?
Probably lack of understanding, because at the forefront it seems like an archaic, primitive, beastly thing to do, which is how I first saw it or whatever, until I started talking with Glenn and a couple other people a little more about it and seeing the what we've covered so far today was my exposure to the possible, but to the obvious benefits and the advantages that it can bring into one's life.
That just shows you how ass backwards some people can get. I mean, there's not too much more primal than that. You know what I mean? Not
to mention, it just shows you what happens when you're ignorant on something. If you don't know anything about it, then and you formed an opinion, it's like, I hate sushi. Have you ever tried sushi? No, it looks funny. You're like, well, what the hell is that? Like, you can't say you hate something unless you've tried it. Anyway, you gotta.
I hate it on principle.
On principle, that's it. That's enough. It's enough for most people, for a lot of people anyway. I should say most people. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's true in a certain aspect, but there are some people in the UFC that are violent and that have pasts and things of that nature, but you can't lump, right? You can't.
No,
yeah, but you can still be violent and play football. That's all right.
Hell yeah.
Or basketball.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the general violence was kind of what, not that I'm against violence, I just never got anything from watching two people beat each other up. I just
True, and
Now-
there is violence in a lot of other
yeah,
sports. too.
of course. But when Glenn started making me aware of the strategic art and the intellect,
Strategery.
that's put into some of it, I started thinking, man, okay, so there is a certain amount of calculation that goes on with understanding your opponent, understanding your situation, connecting yourself to your body, and getting it to do what it is you want it to do. That I inherently appreciate and in depth appreciate, because I've messed with other things in my life that were not martial arts related, but that was the same exact approach that attracted me to it, or
The
angle
discipline of it, right?
Yeah, and just to get yourself to get your body to do what your mind is telling it to do, and then understanding what you should be doing mentally as well.
That's one of the reasons why I love board sports. It's like-
Board?
yeah, doing sports on a board, you have to
Oh,
learn
like-
about not only just how your body moves, but how the board moves and how the surface you're on it will allow that board to move.
Yeah. And I have zero balance. You put anything slippery or wheels underneath me, and it's like, because I don't practice it, and I'm just completely retarded when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's bad.
Along that same line, feeling, I feel like there's a certain amount of feeling that you have to have in board sports too. Like it's very similar in martial
Intuitiveness.
arts. Yeah, instinctual.
Right.
And back to Muay Thai, not to totally just switch the subject,
it's okay.
but speaking of instinctual arts, Muay Thai is an instinctual art. There is a very distinct classification, separation between technical arts and instinctual arts. So an instinctual art is Muay Thai. You maybe learn a set of skills, and then you as the practitioner deliver them however you feel they need to be delivered. Technical arts are you deliver it in this fashion, and it
Every
needs
time.
to every time, and it needs to be delivered this way in order to be effective. Wushu is one of those arts.
That's an awesome name. I've never heard of that before.
Wushu is a very technical art. If you don't know everything about Wushu, it makes it very difficult for the art to be efficient in combat style. But if you know all of it, it's very effective. So
Use the tools as a combination, as a
Absolutely.
toolkit, as opposed to use the tools that you've learned and proceed forward. Interesting. Okay. I like that. I haven't heard that approach.
Yep.
One of the things I wanted to talk about, too, that's going to kind of shift a little bit in a different direction. The way, and again, it could be my ignorance, and it could be definitely going to be my limited exposure to this kind of stuff, which is why I had the question. It seems to me that, I don't know, within the last 3 or 4 decades or whatever, we have, as a society in America, shifted a lot from what fighting sports were more popular at the time, and maybe not even as far back as 3 or 4 decades, but boxing and the wrestling, be it the dramatic type or just wrestling in general, seemed to be the dominant stuff when I was a kid and before the 80s, like we had mentioned, when this stuff started coming as we recognize it today here in this country. And I was kind of curious what caused people to shift from what was popular to these new mixed martial arts practices and spectator sports and everything associated with it. And one of the things that I had come to the conclusion, I wanted you guys to weigh in on it and see what you thought about it, was that these new age MMA, UFC, all this cage style pit fighting, all of this type of mixing different martial arts practices brings this, for lack of a better term, closer to home for a lot of people. Basically, an anyone can play type recipe, wherein if your dream was to be Hulk Hogan, to take it way back, right? And you wanted to be involved in that dramatic WWF wrestling stuff, or you wanted to be Muhammad Ali and you wanted to be a boxer, you had to know somebody to get into WWF, right? I mean, that was that again, it's like a TV show or something. It's like you're not going to just walk in off the street and say, hey, you're perfect for it. Get in there. You're on the show, right? And similarly with boxing, I mean, dudes trained for years before they were capable of even becoming a contender, and getting into the boxing world. Whereas MMA and UFC, yes, you can and should study for many, many years. However, you can also be nobody, and I've known a few of these guys who will change their diet, go on crazy, diet changes, and work out every single day, and go to one of these clubs and become a member for $100 a month or whatever it costs, and train in some mixed martial arts fashion for as often as they can. All of a sudden, they can compete, and there's competitions at all levels, all pay brackets for everybody. It's reachable for everyone. What do you guys think? You think that played a role in why people care less now about boxing and WWF or wrestling in general? I mean, how does that make you feel?
I personally, I don't know what the audience rates are for these other sports. I don't have a whole great point there. However, there is something about just raw combat that is a trigger. I mean, it's primal. You know, it's.
I was going to make that same point, Glenn. I completely agree with you. Historically, I was going to make that point. Absolutely.
All right.
Well done.
Well,
I have seen guys do that too. People kind of along the lines of where, hey man, come hang out with me at the gym, and there's a little boxing rink there, and here's a pair of gloves, and let's put a mask on, and let's have some fun, right? You can sometimes see that in a guy. It'll click after the first hot one to the face or one that he blocked or whatever. Something can snap in them, and they can either lose control, start swinging crazy, and just pushing all their weight forward, and just losing any strategy, and more just going, balls to the wall and going crazy. And it's like, whoa, what the hell, dude? Like, we're still playing, buddy. Yes. I've seen guys snap in that sense, and it's like, and these are people who are that they don't, well, at least that I knew of them, that wasn't a typical reaction or fallback reaction to them. They didn't get so emotional, but getting punched in the face might wake that up inside you, and then the next thing you know, that's you're seeing red and you're going crazy, and which is
they call that blackout. I was agreeing with Glenn on the archaic sort of connection that there is to it. It's like, I mean, look at the Coliseum. I mean, you have this pit, where you put people against other people, and bears and tigers and whatever other sort of ridiculous things you put people against. It awakens something inside of you. There's a reason that the octagon is the octagon. In my opinion, it very much resembles these old relics. There's a huge historical connection. And going back to what Glenn said about this sort of carnal and sort of innate thing inside of you that just it's. I mean, we're humans, so we come from a long line of lineage.
Hey, we are around today because we got really good at killing each other.
Yeah.
Exactly, and others that looked like us.
Yeah. And those that aren't around weren't so good. They got really good at dying. Yes,
yes, they did.
Yes. Okay, so along those same lines, the other point or angle that I had seen was that. Much like the success of a lot of other companies and products and entities, there was definitely, for our generation, a foundation laid early in life. Like we had talked about, there were local karate and taekwondo companies coming to elementary schools and getting us at first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, whatever. Mostly in elementary school was when I remember it, multiple times happening. They would throw an assembly together, and some local dojo would have made some deal with the local school, and that is how they would not only put the ideas into our head during our PE class, but also start, recruiting new customers. So, I mean, that was planted very early on, and now those entities are reaping a benefit from that.
That's why I called it American martial arts, because there's definitely that capitalistic brand on there.
Absolutely. I mean, that's no different than cigarette ads to kids and Apple computers in all of our computer labs when we were kids. I mean, there's a reason all this stuff still exists in our head. McDonald's Happy Meals.
Yep.
I mean, all that stuff still exists because now we're parents, and either we're still into it or we're taking our kids to it. And I think that played a lot into it.
I could do a Happy Meal right now.
No, never. No, that company is horrible. The last aspect I had on that last angle, I was considering that approach to, or that why the shift in society and the shift in different combative sports was that, and this is what I wanted to ask you guys. Do you think that? Well, first of all, do you think that MMA, UFC, whatever name you want to call it, is more violent than what we grew up with as boxing and wrestling?
You're hitting somebody.
Yeah. And So, okay. Chris, do you agree with that?
Yes and no. I'm sorry. I got to be 50-50 on that. I totally see the point. You are hitting somebody. It makes perfect sense. I think now it's all about efficiency, right? That's why mixed martial arts has come around in the first place, is because it's this need for how quickly and to what best efficiency can I finish you. Did you go in for that spear after I kneed you in the face? Okay, I'm going to turn that into a triangle, and now I've got you still. And now it took me less.
But I feel like boxing at the same time was, with the style and the mentality that has come up with it, I mean, they're still trying to do the same thing. It's just the mentality, the rules that they set in play for the competition was different.
Yes, absolutely. I think the goal and the mission is the same. It's the timing, the efficiency, and the showmanship. Definitely.
Okay.
I think that is increased. I mean, when you see a dude do a spinning reverse heel, you're freaking out, as opposed to maybe a good 1-2 knockout. It's there. I feel. I mean, and we can even talk about that. I mean, how deep do showmanship tricks work? To where people are gonna be like, oh, I like that knockout over that one because it looked cooler.
So you can turn around and yell, "Are you not impressed?" The reason I brought that up is, the question I wanted to hit on there was, do you guys feel that the increased amount of violence in today's combative sports that are televised and popular actually made them more popular than the old sports?
Oh, how old are the sports that we're talking about?
Boxing, wrestling,
Okay.
sumo.
So
do you think that
our sports that we had growing up, we're
That's
not
right.
talking about like Mayan?
Well, what I'm trying to examine here is the transition that society has changed its focus from those ones not being super popular anymore. They're still out there, obviously, they're not disappearing, but to what is popular now and growing in popularity.
It was probably a matter of exposure, now that, World Wide Web, now that we're more interconnected with everything, we got more exposure to what's more popular nowadays.
And what I'm trying to get at with I believe that played a part in it too, but what I'm trying to get at is, do you guys feel that the increased amount of violence that happens in them fed society more? Do you think as a society we like more violence than we used to? I mean, our movies have certainly changed. I can't really.
I feel like there's some violence in boxing. I mean,
definitely there's. I mean, you're trying to knock a dude out, and it's it's not cool. But
see, there we go. Let's look at it as a perspective, right? Knocking a dude out. I mean, the Mayans were killing. They were decapitating.
Yeah, exactly.
They were sacrificing. They were, let's look at this. Great. I mean, yes, I believe that socially, maybe even social media, brands of outlets, companies, however you want to brand it, they have definitely gotten better at hyping violence, definitely. But as far as the intent or what's going to happen as a result of that violence, again, Coliseum, you're getting mauled by bears and you're going to die. You're most likely going to walk out of the ring alive. Most likely. I mean, there's been some deaths in the ring. Actually, I mean, quite a good handful recently. With major injuries and things of that nature, but it's relatively rare, overall, I would say, to die in the ring nowadays.
Are there, to your guys' knowledge, and maybe you don't have anything to say on this, are there new types of practices or disciplines coming to America? I mean, so we read about Jiu Jitsu was a major one that came. Taekwondo, obviously, and karate. Have you guys been exposed to anything new that might be on the pipeline?
Well, none of them are new.
I meant, I'm sorry. No,
they're all old.
I meant new,
but
exposed to America.
Krav Maga.
Krav Maga.
Yeah, Krav Maga is one of them. It's an Israeli martial art.
Okay.
And that's really one of the only ones that I can think of. The rest of them have slowly pretty much made their way over the last couple decades.
Yeah, because it's getting so popular. People are out there looking for new ones. And because, I mean, trying to coin a term, coin a name, is a huge marketing thing, right? It's like, well, my, location trains in this and our fighting style is this. And if you find a successful fighter in it, now all of a sudden you've got, a name that you can ride on and definitely market. Yeah.
we switched a couple times. I mean, we incorporated aspects of Jeet Kune Do, which was Bruce Lee style, into our Taekwondo style. So I mean, there was definitely, and then after that, we left Robinson's, and our family went to another dojo that studied Taekwondo. So I mean, again, that's where I always go back to the American brand on things. But I mean, we can even go one further and say, does, the land of opportunity, quote unquote, not, kind of make an open market for things like that, like martial arts or, I mean, any athletics pretty much, so I don't know.
The last question I've got for you two, do any of these styles, because I don't know, incorporate any type of weapon use or training?
Oh,
weapons?
absolutely.
Okay, they do. Okay, so this isn't all just hand-to-hand combat type stuff. Okay. What do they use? Like, I don't know. Is there just a lot?
I'll let Glenn take this one.
I mean, you have everything from farming tools to katana to broadswords to...
And they train with this stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. I had no idea.
Man, my favorite weapon's a katana. But
wow.
that's, I mean...
Oh, Glenn.
Who did?
Thank you, Glenn.
Who doesn't think they're cool?
Thank you for that.
Of course, right? I have to be the
36 inches, steel, curved. One, I mean, historically, if you look at it as a weapon, one of the best weapons ever created.
Beautiful.
Very precise, just long enough to have a good range. One of the best weapons ever.
I love it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good.
Followed by a staff.
Yes.
Just like a 4.5 foot piece of wood. That's all I need.
Right there.
I forgot what that's called.
It's called having a big stick.
Oh, okay. All right. That's one of my favorites, actually. The range. Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
Bow staff, actually. I mean,
Okay,
Donatello.
sure.
Let's go TMNT real quick.
Hey,
like
all
Donatello
right, I like it.
Donatello was my guy, so.
Yeah. The bow has a longer reach, but the Joe, there's something about it it feels nice.
Awesome. You know what, guys? We are about out of time.
Holding that piece of wood.
I want to leave it right there on that note. Yeah, having a nice big stick makes you a better man. All right, everyone.
Thanks for having me, Ben. I appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Thanks Chris.
Thanks for everybody for
Glenn. We've appreciated your insight as well, and hopefully we'll see you guys around here next time. Show notes and other info can be found at our website, greatdistraction.com. The Great Distraction is listed in iTunes, and we greatly appreciate it when our listeners take the time to look us up and leave us a 5-star rating and review. That helps our show grow and motivates us to continue producing content. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can do so using the email address, greatdistractionpodcast@gmail.com, or via our website. We're always interested in hearing any thoughts, comments, or questions from our listeners. Keeping up on the latest from us can be done in several different ways. You can add us to your favorite RSS feed tracker. The link is available on our website or in iTunes. Or you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Great Distraction, one word, no space. As always, thank you for listening, and thank you for all the support.